What great inspiration. I love that video. I've seen it several times, and some of my favorite lines are, if you're willing, if you do what's easy, your life will be hard. If you do what's hard, your life will be easy. That's Les Brown. And it's not about a college education. It's about massive amounts of action. Love that video. Definitely fires me up. Well, welcome. I'm Mona Hilton, the CEO of Genesis Global Technologies, the authors of the Advantage Suite of Systems, Occupancy Advantage, Developers Advantage, and Advantage Anywhere. And I am so glad you're here for today's webinar because we are obsessed with follow-up. And you're about to find out just how obsessed we are. Now, I don't know what keeps you up at night, but I can tell you around here, we are always talking, thinking, brainstorming about how we can help our clients, how we can help salespeople say yes to their own success. And follow-up is hands down the absolute best #1 way to do that. So I took a peek at some of the people registered for today's webinar just so I could kind of prepare appropriately. And I see a lot of my friends out there. Hey guys, good to see you. A lot of people I don't yet know. I'm looking forward to getting to meet you. I noticed that the industries run all the spans. There's several people, lots of people actually in senior living, in housing of different types, new communities, new home communities, management companies. There's people in all different kinds of industries. And the best part about this is what we're going to talk about today, the principles, the ideas, the inspiration, they apply across the board, regardless of what industry you're in. And that's why I'm having everyone in on one webinar. So today, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. You know that elephant. He's the one that everyone knows is there, but would rather not deal with. Now, unlike this elephant, ignoring your follow-up, hoping it will take care of itself, hoping that you don't have to do it, not such a successful strategy. It just doesn't work. So it's time to tackle the elephant head on, once and for all. We're going to do it today. No, there are 1,000 things that we could talk about regarding follow-up today. And believe me, I'd be happy to talk about each and every one of them with you today, but I don't think you guys want to be here all day. So my plan today is to hit some of the highlights. I want to share some ideas with you that we've done, that we've seen. And I want to give you an opportunity to start building your own follow-up plans, organize your follow-up resources, and think through some of the reasons or excuses to make your follow-up calls. Oh, it's almost like I could hear you groan. Yes, I'm going to make you work a little bit today, but it's okay. It'll be fun, I promise. So if you haven't already downloaded the handout that's attached to this webinar, I would encourage you to do so. We're going to be talking about some of the things today. There are 3 worksheets in there that are kind of tools, a way for you to document some ideas, create your own follow-up plans. So get it either now or get it after the webinar. Also, just a hint, I would recommend that after the webinar, you keep your door closed for another 30 minutes and you work on your follow-up plans while it's fresh on your mind, while you're motivated and inspired and all those good things, that you work on it today, right after we're done. So what I'd like to do is start off with a little bit of a poll. Let's find out, bear with me one second while I pull it up. There we go. I'd like to find out from you, how good do you think your follow-up is now? Yours, your company, what have you. How would you assess yourself now? Go ahead and make some selections. And usually your first instinct is your most accurate one, so go with that. Okay, I'm seeing the numbers come in, and they're changing. Give it just another minute or so. Okay, so looks like everyone's about done. So I'm going to go ahead and, nope, wait, one more minute. They're still changing. All right, I'm going to close the poll in 5 seconds. All right, so I went ahead and closed that poll. Let's take a look at the results. So, as you can see, some of you are pretty confident of how you're doing. Some of you are extremely honest, and I love that about you, because honestly, that's why we're here today. That's why so many people showed up. A few of you guys might feel like this cartoon. Let me show that to you here. This guy right here. But you know what? Regardless of where you are in the spectrum, it's all good. We're here to learn. We're here to improve. We're a work in progress. We're always getting better. And I'm glad you showed up today. So I'd be curious to find out how you feel at the end of the webinar of what you think you can do with what you've learned. Now, just in case there was someone on this call who isn't already sold on the enormity of the follow-up challenge and the super damaging effect of ignoring follow-up, let me share some follow-up stats with you. You might have seen these before, especially if you've been on one of my webinars. Either way, they're going to light you up. They're going to scare the daylights out of you. 65% of managers cite follow-up as their #1 business failure. These, I believe, are a product of the MIT study, not me. I didn't make these up. I actually think it's higher than this, but these are the 65% of people who are honest. 80% of leads never receive any follow-up. And that is so scary. Oh my gosh, that's really upsetting. But I can tell you that this is true. I have, over the years, tested this theory, contacted places, gone into places to see what kind of follow-up I've received. And I can tell you over the years, there have been, I can count on one hand the number of times that someone has followed up with me, much less followed up well. So that's a pretty scary statistic, especially when you consider of the people who follow up, how often are they doing it? Well, 25% of people who follow up contact twice and then stop. That's the bulk of them. 12% make 3 contacts and stop, and 10% make more than 3 contacts. So what does it take to get results? 2% of sales are made on the second contact, and that's where most people stop, mind you. 5% of sales are made on the third contact. 10% are made on the fourth contact. Notice how it's definitely getting larger, and when you get to 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact, and almost nobody does it that often. So you can see how important your follow-up is, but what about how quickly you follow up? Again, this is MIT who says this, not me. If you follow up within 5 minutes of a prospect reaching out to you, you're 10 times or 1,000% more likely to close a sale than if you wait just 30 minutes. 5 minutes, folks, that's not a lot of time. Unfortunately, most people, it's taking almost 2 full days to follow up, 44 hours, as opposed to 5 minutes. Like I said, that will scare you to death. But I always say that the scariest statistic is the one we never know. And that is, and I'm not asking you to share this, just think about this. How many sales did you lose this year because of either lack of follow-up at all or just plain bad follow-up? So we're not going to sugarcoat it. Follow-up is not for the faint of heart. But you know what? Neither is sales. And if you wait until you feel like doing your follow-up, you're never going to do it. That's just the reality. That's why it's so critical to put together a plan, develop strategies to make your follow-up easier, make it more effective, and allow it to really be a powerful catalyst for your sales. So before you get discouraged and down on yourself, let me remind you that we came to this earth very well equipped with all the skills and all the persistence necessary to do extremely effective follow-up. If you don't believe me, talk to your kids. Learn follow-up from your children. Now, I can tell you, my kids, when they want something, they will do anything to get what they want. Mine will ask again and again a different way until they finally wear me down. And if it doesn't work quick enough, they'll recruit other decision makers, whether that's dad or grandma, even siblings if they have to. They're also, by the way, great negotiators. They know how to close the deal. Hey, if I clean my room, can I have this or can I go there? You guys have heard the same thing. And kids never give up until they get the answer that they want. They're persistent. They just simply do not quit, ever. So no to my kids just means ask me again a different way. But unfortunately, over time, as we grow up, we become adults, life beats us up a little bit, we lose that natural muscle of persistence. So we have to redevelop it. But it's there. It's in us. We've got what it takes. Also consider a man who's wooing a woman. He's persistent and he's creative, isn't he? He's sending flowers. He's sending texts. I'm just thinking about you. He woos her with kindness. He pulls out all the stops. When you stop and think about it, isn't that what we're doing? We don't want our prospects to forget about us. And we certainly don't want them to think about our competition instead of us. So if the skills for follow-up are built into us, if they're innate, if they're natural, why do we dread, ignore, and avoid follow-up at all costs? I'd submit to you that there's a number of reasons, and you'll relate. One is they don't want to be a pest. You know, I've said this, I've even heard this. Hey, they know about me. When they're ready, the prospect's going to call me. They know I'm here. Wrong. Here's the thing. People don't wake up every morning and think, I wonder what I can do to help Mona sell something today. That doesn't happen. They wake up thinking about their day, their challenges, their situation, what they need. And if you can address their needs, you're going to get to your goals. That's why I made this little meme. I love it. The prospect will surely call. Let's just wait. You feel like this guy sometimes? Another reason we don't do our follow-up is that we're afraid to look dumb. Now, what if I stumble? What if I fall? What if my words don't come out right? What if I forget? What if I just look like a fool? You know, a kid is willing to take that risk to get what he wants. And the good news is, the more you do follow-up, the better you're going to get at it. There's always practice and preparations, which we're going to talk about. We'll get to that later. Another reason we don't do our follow-up is that we're afraid of rejection. There we go. You know, nobody likes to be told no. And the truth is, sometimes we live under the delusion that if we don't call, we're not going to get a no. Maybe they'll just call us. But that doesn't work, and it doesn't deter our children either, does it? I love this. The other reason that we don't do follow-up is that we don't know what to say. That's the easiest problem to solve, and that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to work on different ways to develop a plan for follow-up, a library of things to do and to say. What if I told you that simply by doing your follow-up, whether you do it well or whether you do it clumsy, just the act of doing follow-up consistently, flawlessly, every time will increase your conversion rates by a minimum of 15% and 50%. What would that do to your sales? And would it make you feel better about taking on the risks if I don't know what to say and I'm intimidated and I'm afraid and all those things? So as I was preparing for today's session, I was doing some research and I accidentally stumbled across the American, this is a great meme also. What if I told you leads don't always close on the first call? That's why it's important to continue to do follow-up. So as I was saying, I was doing research on the American Sign Language, And this is the sign for follow-up. F is for follow-up. This is the sign for F, I'm sorry. So if you take that sign and you turn it slightly, you flip it, this is what you get. You end up with follow-up fears. It's the other bad F word that stops us from doing our follow-up, fear. But the great news is you get to decide what fear stands for you. How are you going to deal with fear? Are you going to forget everything and run? Or are you going to face everything and rise? You get to decide. So now that I have you all worked up and all pumped up and you're ready to hang up and get on the phone and make your calls, before you do, hold up just 1 second. Let's address some of the things not to do when you make your follow-up calls. One of the things I'd like to play for you is a voicemail message that I received this week that I want you to hear.
Hi, Mona. This is Sibi Mustafa with Offset. Hey, Mona, I just noticed that you have signed up for, you have attended a webinar with us on May 23rd in regards to understanding how to do an effective product demonstration. So Offset is a platform where you can create and distribute enablement content, technical content, which helps your customers understand more.
I'm not going to torment you through the rest of those 62 seconds of, that's not a typo, pain in the ear. Oh my goodness, were you even able to stay awake? I have played that several times. I don't think I've ever made it all the way to the end. And it's not about just the accent. Let's face it, everybody has an accent depending on where you're from. But if you're going to call people, make sure that they can understand you. Make sure that you have a purpose and a reason and some value to them. What's in it for me? I still can't figure out, why should I call this man back, much less listen to the entire voicemail. So one thing not to do is use this voicemail as a model. Share a couple of other ideas with you of things not to do when you're making your follow-up calls. It's natural that when you call over and over again and they don't respond, it's very natural to get frustrated. But whatever you do, don't let it show. Don't let it show in your voice or your message or your choice of words. The best follow-up that I have received always sounds like it's the first time you've called. It's upbeat and it's expectant. You're expecting good results. Another tip is don't hide behind email all the time. Now, email is a great follow-up, but don't use it when you really know that you should be picking up the phone and making the call. So don't hide behind it. Also, don't end a voicemail by saying, hey, call me when you have time. Newsflash, they're never going to have the time to call you back. So don't say, when you have time, give me a call. And never call without a purpose. Now, we're going to talk about creating reasons, excuses, purposes to call in a minute. In fact, in the handout, one of the worksheets is a call reasons worksheet. And I've filled out a couple of them just to kind of get you started. Again, if you have it beside you, you can kind of jot ideas as we talk about things that you go, oh, you know what? I could try this or a variation of that. And again, use this after the webinar. Spend a few minutes brainstorming reasons that you can call. I also like this follow-up email meme. I like email follow-up. Email follow-up is my favorite. I thought that was cute, and it makes the point. Don't hide behind email. So let's kind of flip the table here, and let's talk about some follow-up tips. Things you should do when you make your follow-up calls. One of those, of course, is to focus on them. Again, it goes back to what do they need or what do they want? When they wake up in the morning, what is it that they're thinking about it? It's obviously not how to help you sell. What's on their minds? What are they concerned about? I love Zig Ziglar. He had a quote that said, if you help others get what they want, you're going to get what you want. And I know I'm paraphrasing here. But that's a great way to live your life. If you help other people get what they want, it's just natural. You're going to get what you want. Offer something of value, and that goes back to creating your reasons to call list. Why are you calling, and what value do you have? It doesn't have to be diamonds or gold or what have you, but it does have to have value to your caller. Like the voicemail I just played to you, I couldn't find any value in it for me. What's in it for me? So make sure that when you call, you have something of value. Also, don't sound salesy. Keep it short and sweet. You know, you can smell a salesperson within 2 seconds of the call. Here's the things that salespeople say. The purpose of my call is, or I'm calling to see if so-and-so is available. Let's face it, you would never call a friend or a business colleague and use those words. So why are you using them on prospects? Another personal pet peeve I have is this a bad time? Well, what do you think they're going to say? Of course it's a bad time, especially if they've already figured out you're a salesperson and you're trying to sell them something. And I understand the value of asking permission. So if you really do feel like you should ask permission, word it in a positive way. Hey, do you have a minute to chat? I have a question I wanted to run by you. Things like that. So they still have a way to get out of it if they need to, but it doesn't sound like, oh my gosh, I'm about to be sold to. Another call tip is to practice and prepare. Sound different. A wise man once told me, carefully think about and select words, stories, and analogies that make you sound different from your competition. Practice, practice, practice. Now, I know some people don't like role-playing, but that's a great way to experiment and practice and hone your craft. You can also record your calls and listen to them. Listen to them as if you are the prospect on the other end of that call. How does it come across to you? Are there any red flags? And if you're not sure, ask a colleague for an honest critique. Another call tip is to get in the mood. Now, I'm not talking about turning down the lights and playing Ray Charles. What I'm saying is your internal dialogue that's happening in your head affects the way you come across. And people hear it in your tone over the phone, I promise. If you're feeling timid or fearful, or you're unsure of yourself, or maybe you're unsure of what you're representing, they're going to pick that up in your aura. It comes out, I guarantee. Now, I'm not telling you you want to sound like a hyper cheerleader on caffeine and get all excited and sound like an Energizer bunny, but you do want to speak with authority and with confidence. Your lack of confidence creates a lack of confidence in them, in your community, your product, your service, and you. So before you make those calls, get yourself fired up. Play a song that fires you up, or play an inspirational video like the one we started off with today to get you fired up. I know one salesman who carries a baseball bat around to remind himself visually that he's going to knock it out of the park. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying find what works for you. I can tell you for me, I wear a headset and I pace when I make my calls. I'm actually doing it now because it helps me think. So experiment and then do what works for you. It's okay if you look silly. Don't worry about it. Whatever works for you is what's good. The last call tip I want to share with you is the most important one, and that's to get started. You know, we talk a lot about motivation. Motivation is great, but if you don't have it, do your follow-up anyways. For most people, motivation never comes. So if you sit around waiting for it, you're not going to do anything. Now, I personally love the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. If you haven't heard of Mel, Google her, check her out on YouTube. It's a great concept. In a nutshell, the idea behind the 5-second rule is to move you to take action and break the back of procrastination before you can talk yourself out of it by counting backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then boom, take action towards something that you should do. It's a really simple, but it's a very powerful little trick that works. In fact, I used it last Friday. Let me tell you a short story, kind of take you into my world for a minute. I attended a big conference, very large audience, in which I did not know a single soul there. But I went because I knew that I wanted to get attention of two of the panelists. So I went in there with a plan to ask a specific question at the end. Well, as the presentation went on and on, it went long. And during that time, I started to have this internal dialogue, and I started to talk myself out of asking the question. What if I look stupid? What if I bumble? What if they don't think it's an appropriate question? You know the dialogue. You've probably had them yourself. And the presentation went long, and it looked like they were going to run out of time, so there wouldn't be time for questions. And believe it or not, I hate to admit it, but I was a little relieved because now I didn't have to ask. However, 3 minutes before it was over, the moderator asked if anyone had any questions. So I looked around the audience. I saw no one was speaking up. They were probably listening to my dialogue in my head. So I started to talk myself out of it too. You know, nobody else was asking questions. Do you want to make a fool of yourself? And I used that 5-second rule for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I threw my hand up in the air before I could think about it. Long story short, the panelists that I was trying to connect with commented what a great question it was. We chatted afterwards. I followed up with him with actually a series of emails and a handwritten note. And just yesterday, one of them agreed to have coffee with me next week. So see, it works. So try out that 5-second rule. Just count backwards and do what you need to do quickly before you can talk yourself out of it. Now, I want to kind of switch gears and talk about questions that everyone asks about follow-up. So let's just go ahead and address them. One of those questions is how long do I follow up? Well, I can tell you that around here, our saying, a little quote I made up years ago is follow up until they buy, cry, or get a restraining order, whichever comes first. And I know it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it makes a point. You definitely want to follow up a minimum of 7 touches. You know, think in terms of being persistent. Don't think in terms of stalking. Another question that we get often is how soon should I follow up? The answer is immediately. It's never too soon to follow up. I've been known to sit in the parking lot and send a follow-up email or a text or what have you. Another more complicated question is how frequently do I follow up? So here's the thing. It depends. There are a lot of people out there who maintain that you should follow up every single day, especially in the beginning. And I can't argue with that because when you follow up frequently, the sooner you follow up and the more frequently, the less likely they are to fall through the cracks. And you know, when you haven't followed up in a while, how hard it is to re-engage with them and connect with them again. It's kind of awkward. But if you're going to follow up every day in the beginning, and I'm not against it, make sure that you're smart about how you follow up and don't do it the same way. Don't call and leave the same voice message 5 days in a row. I wouldn't recommend that. Mix it up, and we'll talk about some ways that you can mix it up. The other question that we get all the time is, what should I say for follow-up? So the answer is, have something good to say it well, and say it often. This little gorilla meme is cute. Follow-up is a lot like wrestling a gorilla. You don't quit when you're tired. You quit when the gorilla is tired. I know it's tongue-in-cheek, but it makes a point that you need to follow up and you can't ever give up. So I want to take another poll about mediums. How are you currently following up? What mediums do you use for follow-up? So go ahead and answer those questions. So how are you doing your follow-up? Are you using calls, texts, emails, visits? What are you using now for follow-up? A lot of phone calls. It looks like the next biggest one is emails and then text messages and then print and social media. Oh, good. I'm glad people are using social media. That's awesome. All right. So and you can pick several of those, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, and I'm going to share it so you guys can see what those answers look like. So I'm glad to see people are using social media. My question to you is, would you be willing to experiment with other mediums? Would you be interested in doing that? So let me take it back so you can see my screen. What I want to do is share some ideas with you. Be creative in your follow-up. Mix up the medium. So one idea is if they gave you your cell phone, try sending a text message. Now, I know back in the day that was a little taboo because you paid for text messages. Those days are pretty much gone. And some people respond really well to text messages. I'm one of those people. So I'm really hard to get to by phone, but I can always text back. And I respond well to that because it's quick and easy for me. I had someone follow up with me yesterday. As long as I know who you are, I'll respond to you. My brother, on the other hand, thinks that that's very disrespectful. He thinks that you should call him. So this is a great opportunity for you to ask people, what's your preference? Would you prefer phone or text or email, or what works best for you? Maybe they'll tell you several of them. But if you have their cell phone number, definitely try sending a text. Now, connect with social media, and I know some of you are probably cringing right now because, again, that's a little taboo or has been in the past. You know, you're afraid that people are going to think you're stalking them, but I don't think that's the case so much anymore. I wouldn't be afraid. I mean, LinkedIn for sure. You should connect with every professional person, prospect, referral source that you're working with. Absolutely. Even on Facebook. Facebook is a great place to connect. My one tip here would be don't try to sell using social media. Educate using social media. So offering free resources, information, knowledge, what have you, that's great. Send a video message using your cell phone. This is becoming more popular, and it's so easy to do. You have a smartphone. Just take out your smartphone and record a message. Hey, Mona, I was thinking about you this morning. Your name came up in conversation. I hope you're doing great. I'd love to chat with you. I wanted to ask you some questions about, your plans for the next half of the year or what have you. And it's very personal, very effective. Another great another medium is audio voice notes. Those are relatively new too. Again, you can do these from your phone. So we've been experimenting with audio voice notes, and they're working. Many of you on this call today have received and even responded to our audio voice notes about this webinar. What's great about them is, through our system, through the Advantage system, we're all about follow-up. We're obsessed with follow-up. So we have triggered follow-up automation that happens anytime you open one of our videos or listen to our audio notes or download something from our website or from an email that we sent to you. So you've already started becoming the, let's just say, happy recipient of our follow-up. So video and audio are great new ways to do it. They're still somewhat unique, and there's still the novelty factor there. So give that a try. See what you think of those. Handwritten notes are the oldest and yet still the most effective. In a past webinar, I spoke a lot about handwritten notes and how to do them and what kind of results you'll get from them. Those are a great way. You can do note cards, you can do handwritten letters, you can do any kinds of things that you want. Handwritten works. Always do it. It goes without saying. Thoughtful but inexpensive gifts. Now, you're not trying to bribe them, so you don't want to buy something really expensive and send it out. But, say you find out that they're a big Disney fan or a big fan of a certain kind of a car or what have you. Find a really thoughtful but not expensive gift and send it to them. Talk about making an impression. That's a great way to do it. Drop by with a cup of coffee or a small treat. I mean, who wouldn't welcome a visitor with a cup of coffee or a treat in their hand? By all means. And, of course, do something thoughtful on their birthdays and on holidays. I believe that last week we had the National Donut Day. It would have been a great opportunity to swing by with some donuts. for a prospect that you're wooing. So be creative. Don't try to look or sound like everyone else. Don't be afraid to show your company culture or your personality. You know, good-natured humor will also make you stand out and be remembered. So don't be afraid of humor. Of course, it goes without saying, but you always want to be in good taste. You want to be respectful. You want to be kind. We're not trying to go for shock value here. We'll leave that to Hollywood. So I wanted to share a few examples of things that we've either seen or heard that work, especially in the area of humor or just being creative. This is an animated GIF of the Cookie Monster tapping his fingers. So the story I was told from a salesperson is that he had called and called and called and called, never this by email, this animated GIF. A message, he just sent it, and he said the prospect called him back. Now, you use your own variation of this. I'm not telling you to do it the way he did it, but Cookie Monster, passing time from you or whatever you. This is something we've used. This is the card advantage is the round wheel. Sent out some of you on this call have asked the reason that you're on this webinar. So a great way to invite people to something. These are advantage. So we kind of took the opposite approach, and we created a little infographic of reasons to versus Mac parody videos that we did. They're really fun. They're only a minute long. They're tongue-in-cheek parodies. I'm not going to take the time to play them right now, but I will play them at the end. When we're done, I'll wrap up with these 3 one-minute videos. They're really cute. They work really well. You know, the point, sometimes the point of follow-up is not to get them to buy anything from you at that moment, but to get them to think about you, to reframe your brand or your message, or just get them to smile. So feel free and be creative and think about ways that you can approach your prospects that are different kinds of follow-up. Have a library of them, but we'll get to that as well in a moment. You know, one of my kind of sad things in life is that follow-up is so understated. It's such an earthy word. You know, I sometimes wish we could rename follow-up to something jazzier like, or something that's more fitting of its value like Uber touches or relationship catalysts or what have you. You know, I actually was joking about changing the name of our system to follow-up advantage, but not real jazzy, not real sexy, but whatever you call follow-up, whatever name you give it, it doesn't change the fact that follow-up is by far the single most powerful factor to predicting your sales success. If you forget everything else, and if you just focus on follow-up, and you just focus on being the best at follow-up, you're going to get much further ahead than anything else. And that's why we're obsessed with follow-up. We think that follow-up should get a lot more attention than a single autoresponder email that you get when you click through, or a passing thought, hey, you know, we should do follow-up. But unfortunately, whenever I say the word follow-up, many people's minds instantly jumps to, oh, I know, you're talking about CRM. People assume that having a CRM is a magic bullet. But the reality is, most CRMs are nothing more than a fancy electronic Rolodex. They store your contacts, your phone numbers, your email addresses, and if you're lucky, your notes. And nowadays, of course, CRMs are also associated as a big brother tool, which of course is why salespeople don't want to use them. What CRMs don't do is the one thing that we really need, which is help us, be our assistant, lay out our follow-up for us, coach us through what we should do for next steps. And as I shared in my voice note that many of you heard, all the bells and whistles in the world, whether you have voice dictation or Outlook integration or make your toast, and by the way, Advantage is 2 of those 3, those features do not mean a thing if they don't help us sell more and improve our closings. That's why, although Advantage System does everything but make your toast, I will not get into a feature comparison contest with anyone, even though it's a very natural thing to do. We're obsessed with follow-up. It's in our blood, it's our DNA, It's what makes Advantage different from CRM. And although Advantage has a ton of functionality, including email and social media marketing campaigns and web lead integration and web lead capture and really helpful industry-specific models, our focus is on helping you automate and do your follow-up. And we believe that that's the reason our clients outperform their competition day after day, month after month, and year after year. At the end of the day, it's not about features or activity or lead scoring. It's about doing the right behaviors of follow-up consistently and flawlessly, the behaviors that lead to our own sales success. So we designed Advantage to lay out your follow-up, to merge. We want it to, you tell I'm passionate about. Over the years, when it comes to follow-up, we've come moo-moo. One size does not fit all. There are totally different situations that call for totally different types of follow-up, and therefore different styles of follow-up automation. So there's three I'd like to share with you. One is a totally automated, set it and forget it follow-up. It's an email campaign that just runs, and we'll talk more about that later. But these are great for nurturing a web lead who clicks through in the middle of the night, or an unengaged lead that needs to be educated before they're ready to talk. By the way, this is how you are able to follow up within 5 minutes of a lead reaching out to you, no matter when they do it. And then not just one follow-up, but keep that nurturing process going through emails over days and weeks until they are ready to raise their hands or engage with you. Then there's linear follow-up. Linear follow-up is personalized, but it's not all emails. It would incorporate a variety of follow-up mediums. There's calls and emails and printed documents and mailings and visits and videos and actions that happen in order, but they might be done by different people in your organization. Maybe one's to you, one's to a colleague, even a manager. It's great for things like workflow automation, or once a prospect buys, or maybe when you're courting your referral source. And then there's my favorite, because sales is not a linear process. There's a user-driven library or menu of follow-up items. So think of it as a library of all the possible things, ideas, calls, emails, gift suggestions, testimonials, letter templates, questions, offers, resources, etc. that you can do that are all sitting on a shelf ready for you. But since I'm a visual person, maybe you are too, this helps me a little bit kind of compare the three. The first is totally automated email follow-ups. You can see day 1, day 2, day 3. This is what we send, this is what we send, and it just goes. You don't have to do anything. The second one is a linear sequence that are different kinds of things. It requires that maybe you make a call or that you do a certain kind of thing, but they're assigned to different people. Make sure nobody falls through the cracks. And then the third one is a library of follow-up activities. Again, think of them as all the possible things, calls, emails, ideas, gift suggestions, testimonials, letter templates, questions, offers, resources that you can do all sitting on the shelf. And then based on how your conversation is going with that prospect, or where the prospect is in their buying journey, or what they're interested in maybe, you simply pick the next appropriate item, follow-up item. You tell Advantage when you want to do it, and Advantage sets it up for you. And then, of course, when you're done with that one, Advantage suggests the next one. You can either do that or pick something different. And little by little, you're working your way through your follow-up library. It's really nice because it gives you the flexibility you need to ebb and flow with your prospect's needs, but the automation to prompt you and make sure that no prospect ever gets left behind or forgotten. And it's nice, too, because you don't waste time trying to figure out, what do I say, or what have I already done, or what did I forget about, and what has somebody else used? It's all there for you. Now, inside the handout that was attached to the webinar, there are some templates that you can start building your own follow-up plan. And again, you can print this out. In the printed out one, I think I have some suggestions already getting started. This is my follow-up plan, for example, for a web lead, or for someone who comes to an event, or what have you. Here's also a starter for your follow-up library. This is your library of resources, all the things that are available to you for you to use as follow-up, so you don't sit around going, I wonder what I should send next, or what have I done, or, this is part of the reason that people aren't doing their follow-up is they don't know what to do. Here's your library. It's a menu. Think of it as a menu. And I can tell you that we practice what we preach when it comes to doing follow-up. We actually say we eat our own dog food. In fact, if you've watched one of our videos, or you downloaded something from our website, or you listened to the audio note, you've been the, shall we say, unknowing recipient of our follow-up. It's funny because last week, Lance Armstrong, he is on our team. He does follow-up with senior living prospects, and prospected click-through requested information. Within 5 minutes of her click-through, Lance called, and she said, wow, you guys really practice what you preach. I just smiled. I said, yes, we do. We're all about follow-up. So kind of in wrapping up, I want to make sure that you have a plan. Collect a lot of resources for your library that you can follow up with. Maybe it's information on your product, or brochures, or services, or company, or maybe you have YouTube videos, or tours, or information, or education, anything that will help the prospect and be valuable to them. They could be funny, they could be articles, maybe it's a list of questions that you use to learn more about their needs, kind of a discovery process. Maybe you want to make a personal video and send it. Also, if you're not already using Google Alerts, check them out. They're awesome. So you can create a Google alert on a topic, like maybe it's Alzheimer's, or maybe it's home safety tips, or maybe it's whatever you would like, whatever that topic is. And anytime something comes up new, Google will send you an alert about that, and you can in turn share that with your prospects, always providing fresh follow-up resources for you. The other thing you can do with Google Alert, if you work with businesses, if you're calling out businesses or referral sources, is you can create a Google Alert for a company, XYZ company. Anytime they publish anything new, a press release, or in the media, whatever, you'll get an alert about it. You can congratulate them. You can do whatever you'd like. So mix it up. Don't just stick to phone calls. It's not just about phone calls. Use handwritten notes, use emails, use text, use video, use printed documents. Try out voice notes, really cool. Of course, the phone. Maybe you drop by. You do a pop-by or a visit. You can create photos or cartoons or memes. You can post on Facebook or LinkedIn, social media. Whatever you need to do to break the back of procrastination. That's the idea behind follow-up. So, of course, if you want our help, we are happy to help you to create your own follow-up systems for all of your scenarios, and then automate them, because that's the power, is to make them happen. So it's not up to a person's memory or their availability or their procrastination or talking themselves out of it. We'd also be delighted to show you the Advantage system that's perfect for your industry. There's one for senior living. There's one for new home communities, for healthcare, and even business. So I want to thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon with me today. Hopefully you got some ideas and tips, and you're working on the handout, the worksheets, to create your own. And as I promised you earlier, I am going to wrap this up with 3 of our PC versus Mac parodies, with basically Advantage versus CRM. They're cute, they're tongue-in-cheek. Enjoy and have a great day. And here's my contact information. I'll put it back up on the screen afterwards. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I promise you I'll follow up. Enjoy, guys.
Hi, I'm Advantage. And I'm the old school CRM. Wait, people still use you? Yeah. I'm like a horse and buggy. Familiar, been around forever. Well, times have changed since the horse and buggy. It's time for new innovations. The new way of sales and marketing. Vintage? Really? Yep. Sales and marketing. I'm designed to win the sales in today's economy. I think I'll stick to what I know. Vintage. Fine. With email marketing, social media, follow-up automation. Well, I've got all those tools. Leads instantly. Seamlessly. That sounds a lot less painful. got there? Hey, keep it down. If they figured that out, I get fired. What are you doing? Currently engaging them. When, where they go, who's working them. We don't really talk about it here.
Shouldn't you know all that? I do. I think you just did.